Hello, and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a public, informational, nonpartisan program designed to get the public acquainted with candidates that are vying for this 2024 general election. The following races will be addressed: Kaiser City Mayor, Kaiser City Council, Marion County Sheriff, Senate District 9, House Districts 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, and Congressional Districts 5 and 6. These interviews come to you through the producers at Capital Community Media, with collaboration on questions and interviewers from the American Association of University Women and from the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties. All candidates for these races were invited, and 65% chose to participate. Candidates did not receive the questions that were prepared by League of Women Voters in advance of this interview. Candidates were invited to prepare a 2-minute opening addressing their background and their qualifications for this office. And they have prepared a 2-minute closing sharing whatever information they choose to add. I'm Bernadine Anderson from the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties, and today I would like to introduce Brett Smith, who is running for Congressional District 5. Candidate Smith, we look forward to hearing your 2-minute opening marks and welcome to you.
All right, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I decided to run for the House in particular because it's supposed to be the House of Representatives, right? And I don't feel particularly represented. I go around the district and I hear that sentiment a lot. I don't know. I'm going to take that back. I've met one individual who said that they felt represented. So I don't want to be labeled a liar, but I did meet one guy who said he felt represented. Um, the interesting thing about this is when I decided to run, one of my staunchest supporters now was like, he's like, well, what have you thought about maybe running for city council? Maybe a little lower, shoot a little lower, because I don't have any political experience. I'm not from the political sphere. I'm an inventor. I've made a medical device for my son. I hold several United States patents, things like that. But problem solving is something that I do, something that I enjoy, something that I love. And it all stems from like wanting to help people. And I can't think of a better way to help people than to participate in our democracy. We're at a point where people, like I said, they feel disenfranchised, disillusioned with the system. And uh, for the House of Representatives to be elitist just doesn't sit right with me. So that's why I threw my hat into the ring. That's why I'm trying to do this. And that's why I think uh, I should get your vote. I mean, I want to prove to everybody that I'm a serious person and that I can actually make changes. Being an independent is going to allow me to facilitate changes that, like the Republicans and Democrats, just can't do, and especially with the House so closely divided. When they try to pass any legislation or anything like that, they're going to have to seek out independent or third party people to get anything done. So
Well, thank you very much. And now we'll look forward to hearing your views on some questions that we've prepared.
awesome.
Our first question today is: what role does the federal government play in addressing the state's climate resilience?
Well, so as an inventor, like I love science. It's important to me. And there's a lot of arguments for why the climate's changing, but there's the evidence is there for that it is changing. So the government's role in that is to facilitate some kind of change along with it. We can't just deny it, is not an option. We need to look at regions that are being impacted the most, like coastal regions. Here in Oregon, fires. We need to get more money to like forest services in order to prevent fires from spreading from cities and townships, things like that. Our local response teams need to be more integrated in order to uh, address any climate change issues. We need to come to a consensus as a government, as a leader in the world, not even just for Oregon, but the United States in general. We need to come to a consensus that the climate is changing and stop bickering over like the sensationalism of it, the social aspect of it. And like I said, it's if you think climate is changing because of human activity or anything like that, I mean, it can be debated. There's evidence out there for or against, and you can talk about it all day. But the fact of the matter, when you boil it down, is CO2 traps heat. That's something that you can easily prove. And we've got more CO2 in the atmosphere, and the climate is warming up, and it's having an adverse effect on the world. So the government does start need to start taking appropriate steps to mitigate these impacts. We already know that our coastal regions are going to start losing landmass because of rising tides. That's something that we have to look at. We already know that fires, I mean, here again, here in Oregon, we already know that fires are going to be more prevalent in the future, that our forests are going to dry out more. We need to clear them out, do a better job of maintaining them. And then we have to start looking at like insurance policies. People are going to have to start realizing we're going to be in regions where it's going to be harder to insure things. And our government needs to be able to help our citizens who are in those regions because we can't just leave them high and dry. It's not their fault that the climate is changing in that particular reason and then they bought a house there, 40 years ago. The government needs to have some sort of system in place to help its citizens either relocate or to set something in place to help mitigate the climate change in their area or help prevent fires or whatever it needs to do. But it is something that we need to address and look at.
In this response, you've answered two of our questions. I'm just going to expand a little bit on one, and
Sure.
that's great because I certainly see the relationship also. You've addressed that fires and the length of fire season is increasing.
Mhm.
But what this does is it also increases the portion of the forestry budget that's allocated to that. So, what do you see federal and state governments and budgeting do to address this?
Well, I mean, we got to kind of look at like what budgeting is in the first place. When somebody from the government, budgets, it's usually staying within a realm of spending, right? There's so much bloat in our government and waste in the spending because there's not a lot of people who know how to do things. And the thing about budgeting and spending money is people tend to spend more money when they don't know how to do a thing. For example, if you want to, change the oil in your car, it's cheaper just to go change the oil yourself. But if you don't know how, you're going to hire somebody to do it. But the government has placed like too many middlemen in between the spending and the action. So if we could mitigate how many middlemen are in between there and free up some of the money, we would be able to spend it a little more wisely and then actually budget more efficiently.
Thank you. We're going to continue with natural resources, only this time, let's look at the issue of groundwater quality and quantity and the impact of the Snake River Dam's removal that affect our state in many ways, and in some parts more than others. Can you comment on this situation?
Well, quality of water is a huge deal for me. Um, so one of the things I like to get out when I'm talking to Oregonians, especially, is that I am a transplant. I was born in Barstow, California, and I was raised in Hinckley, California. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the Aaron Brockovich story, thing like that, happened. That's where I grew up, and I've watched family and friends die from being poisoned, from corporations taking advantage of things like that. And so I personally have, and like I said, I'm an inventor, so I've designed like a desalination system that can help uh, clean water out, things like that. The removal of the Snake River Dam and how that's going to affect everything, I can't really comment on that in particular because I need to see the data set, right? Like I can speculate along with everybody else, but there's a lot of real data on the ground that I would have to look at and go through in order to make like a better assessment.
Thank you. Also, continuing with the thread of natural resources, what policy and or program help can Oregonians expect as we try to address our energy concerns?
Yeah. So again, the energy thing, PGE, for example, is going to do another rate hike. And our regulators have come out and said that there's nothing that they can do about it. To me, which is absurd. This is one of the reasons why I even decided to run. When I heard that, it kind of floored me. PGE is a government sanctioned monopoly. They don't exist without our government grid and the ability to use it and attach to it. The government said you get to be in a monopoly and control this area and give energy to this sector, right? And there's no competition. Nobody can compete with them or anything like that. And the idea that our regulators can't be like, hey, you can't get that rate cut. It's affecting our citizens adversely is ridiculous to me. So one of the things that I want to address is the possibility to open up our public grid to other electrical companies that are on it. You know, if we have to make it a little more competitive, or making like public utility districts is something that I and the mayor of Malala have been talking about, trying to get the cost lowered here locally, at the very least. But addressing electrical prices is one of my primary concerns.
Thank you. Switching topics a bit, could you explain your revenue perspective in budgeting for the many social services programs?
Yeah, you hear a lot of things about like tax the rich, right? And paying their fair share and things like that. And I agree. There's a lot of loopholes that the wealthy and the top 1% of this country just have access to that regular people do not have. So they get to use them. And I don't think it's so much tax the rich that needs to happen, but I'm going to give an example of like Elon Musk buying Twitter for $44 billion. He didn't have $44 billion just on hand to buy it. He put up his Tesla stock against the bank and got a loan out and used the Tesla stock as collateral, right? So I'd like to like tax that transaction instead of the money that's being passed back and forth. If you're going to sit there and tell me that your stock isn't of value or has perceived value and you can't tax it, but you're going to use it as collateral, to me, it has intrinsic value at that time, and I think we should tax every transaction that any hedge fund or private equity firm or rich person, whatever, uses, and you would be able to make billions of dollars in revenue that way. And it wouldn't be such an egregious affront or detrimental to anybody who is being taxed. And it would allow us to tax the upper class 1% people more efficiently and be able to take that money and help prop up our social services and things like that without putting it on the backs of the middle class.
Thank you. Digging a little deeper into then these issues, what should be the federal government's role in addressing women's right to privacy and reproductive health decisions?
So, as we're talking about, so abortion to me is healthcare. Period. And healthcare is a right. So the government should advocate for a woman to make her own decisions and be able to go into a room with a doctor and make those informed, educated decisions. And that's it. That's all the government should do is just be able to allow them to facilitate that and then step back.
Thank you. You have in CD5, you would have a wide range of constituents. How do you propose to keep in communication with them?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a public website, my social media things. But I also go around the district. I'm actually the only one running in this race, as far as on the congressional level, who's going to events that they've been invited to, talking to people on the ground. I've talked to protesters. I've been to uh, the Malala Grange, or not Malala, but the Silverton Grange has talked to me, and I had an event with them. So just going and showing up and doing actual town halls.
Thank you. Our last question, if elected, which committees would you like to join and why?
Well, the reality is, I think if I got elected, I'm not sure I'm going to be invited to very many committees. You know, I think the left and the right will try to freeze me out of those sorts of things. It's a question that people ask me, like, what can you actually do? And really, the only thing that I can do with this race in particular is show that a person who is willing to put into work, um, can have a shot to even get up into Congress and then worry about which committees we can get in there. Because right now, if you get on a committee, it's going to be whatever the Republicans and whatever the Democrats decide is going to happen in the committee or who's going to be on it. But if we can get enough people to run in races like mine, maybe in 2 years, then the committees can actually be functionable with more independent or third party people.
Thank you. So candidate Smith, we now invite you to share your 2-minute closing comments about your goals for the office, some of which you've expressed, or any other remarks that you wish to share. And do remember, please, to share your contact information so the public could reach out to you.
Yeah, I'd like to remind people again that I am just a regular person. I was working at a lumber mill before I decided to do this. Um, you get a lot of endorsements for the Republican and Democrat. You see them and they'll tout them and be like, oh, X, Y, and Z has endorsed me. But when I go to talk to people on the ground, they really are receptive to what I have to say. And I can resonate with that. And I want to preface this with me being an inventor. I have several United States patents. Um, and I'm currently working on a system that can incapacitate a potential like shooter. We haven't talked about guns or anything like that. And to me, waiting for some legislation isn't good enough for kids right now because kids are dying right now. So I've taken personal action to prevent things like that happening. Here in the next couple of weeks, I'm actually going to go around to school districts and things like that and start presenting this functionable, actionable thing that can help people. And I want people to know that's who I am. I take action. You're voting for me or me helping the district isn't contingent on a vote. You don't have to vote for me to help my community. I'm one of the only people running this race that even live in this district. I'm not trying to be anointed or rule over. I'm trying to defend and protect. I'm the only one who, no matter if Kamala Harris or Donald Trump gets elected, I will support either one to the best of my ability to make this country as good as it can possibly be. And on the flip side of that, if they do anything detrimental to this country or the people in this district, I can be an avatar. I can be the middleman, the person who pushes back against that very vocally. I struggle with the same issues. My rent, not my rent, my mortgage, my electric bill, my food costs. I understand what you guys are going through because I am you guys.
Would you please take just a moment to share your contact information?
Yeah, you can reach me on my website, Brett, B-R-E-T-T dash Smith, S-M-I-T-H dot U-S. Or I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it. Just check me out.
All right. Well, thank you, candidate Smith, for our interview today and for sharing these thoughts. Also, thanks to Capital Community Media for their extensive technology and producer skills that were used to create this program. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk Counties for the design and preparation of the program. And thanks to you, the public, for watching this program and trying to become an informed voter. For more local, state, and national voter information on the candidates and ballot measures, please visit vote411.org after September 30th when the candidate data has been posted. You have until October 15th to register to vote or to make changes to your registration. Ballots go out October 16th, and they will be accepted and counted if postmarked before or on November 5th. Elections matter. Remember to vote because your vote counts.